Emma had always dreamed of running her own restaurant. After years of saving, planning, and working long hours in the industry, she and her husband Jake finally opened a cozy, mid-range restaurant in their town. The place had a warm, welcoming atmosphere, soft lighting, wooden tables, and a carefully curated menu that balanced classic comfort food with a touch of modern sophistication. Emma had poured her heart into every detail, from the decor to the carefully sourced ingredients. In the beginning, everything was overwhelming but exciting. Managing staff, handling suppliers, and making sure customers left happy took up almost every hour of Emma's day. Jake helped where he could, but he also had his own job, so the bulk of the work fell on her shoulders. That's when Linda, Jake's mother, started offering to help out. At first, Emma thought it was a great idea. Linda was a well-known socialite in town, someone who had a natural charm and knew how to talk to people. She wasn't the typical overbearing mother-in-law, at least Emma hadn't thought so. She had always seemed supportive, and Emma appreciated the enthusiasm. Linda volunteered to help with reservations, greet guests, and even offer input on small things like decor and menu items. The first few weeks were smooth. Linda would come in a few hours before the dinner rush, stand near the entrance, and warmly greet customers as they arrived. She had an undeniable presence, and people responded well to her energy. Many guests already knew her from charity events and social gatherings, and Emma was initially thrilled to see familiar faces coming in. It felt like a natural advantage. Linda's network was extensive, and her presence seemed to bring in a steady stream of well-dressed, affluent patrons. But soon small things started bothering Emma. Linda had a habit of making changes without asking. She would rearrange tables to seat her friends, even when it disrupted the planned flow of service. She also started instructing the waitstaff in ways that contradicted Emma's system, sending complimentary drinks or desserts to certain tables, even when there was no policy for that. When Emma gently pointed it out, Linda would smile and wave it off. "Oh, honey, don't worry. These people are our best customers. A little goodwill goes a long way." At first, Emma let it slide. Linda's friends did seem to enjoy themselves, and some of them became repeat customers. But then, Emma started noticing something odd. Some of Linda's friends never actually paid. One evening, as Emma was checking the reservation log, she saw that one of Linda's friends, a wealthy woman named Diane, had dined at the restaurant 3 times that month. Each time, the bill had been marked as comped. Confused, Emma pulled up the transaction history and realized Diane wasn't the only one. Several of Linda's friends had been getting free meals, and none of it had been approved by Emma. She decided to confront Jake about it first. "Did you know your mom's been giving away free meals?" Emma asked him as they closed up one night. Jake looked genuinely surprised. "What? No. Are you sure?" Emma showed him the records, her frustration growing. "It's all here. And I'm not talking about a one-time thing. This is happening regularly. She's just deciding who eats for free?" Jake sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I'll talk to her. Maybe she just got carried away." But when Jake brought it up with Linda the next day, she brushed him off, the same way she had with Emma. "Oh, sweetheart, you're overthinking it," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "These are important people. They'll bring in more business." Emma wanted to believe that, but the numbers didn't lie. They weren't seeing a huge boost in sales, and the cost of these comped meals was starting to add up. What frustrated her even more was Linda's attitude. She wasn't treating this like Emma's business. She was acting like it was hers. The turning point came one evening when Emma overheard a conversation that made her blood boil. Linda was sitting at a table with some of her friends, chatting and laughing. One of the women complimented the restaurant, saying how much she loved the atmosphere. "Well, of course," Linda said with a smug smile. "I practically own the place." Emma, who had been clearing a nearby table, froze. She wasn't usually the confrontational type, but this was too much. After the women left, without paying, of course, Emma pulled Linda aside. "What did you mean by that?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Linda looked confused, as if she didn't see the issue. "By what, dear?" "I practically own the place. That's what you told them." Linda laughed. "Oh, Emma, don't be so sensitive. It was just a figure of speech. You know I only want what's best for this restaurant." Emma clenched her jaw. Then stop giving away free meals. Linda's smile faltered. Excuse me? You heard me. This isn't a charity. If people want to eat here, they pay like everyone else. I worked too hard to build this place for you to just hand out food for free. For the first time, Linda looked genuinely offended. Emma, I'm bringing in good business. These people are influential. A little generosity— No, Emma interrupted firmly. A little generosity is fine. What you're doing is running up costs and making me look like I don't have control over my own restaurant. Linda stared at her for a long moment, then scoffed. Fine. If you want to handle things your way, be my guest. But don't expect me to keep bringing people in if this is how you treat them. Emma wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or even more frustrated. She knew this wasn't the end of the issue, but at least she had made her stance clear. As Linda walked away, Emma took a deep breath and reminded herself, this was her restaurant, and she wasn't about to let anyone, not even family, take that away from her. After their tense conversation, Emma hoped that Linda would take a step back. Maybe she would come to her senses and realize that she had overstepped. But if anything, Linda's behavior only became more passive-aggressive. She still showed up at the restaurant almost every evening, but now, instead of greeting customers with her usual warmth, she acted cold and distant. She made a show of sighing dramatically whenever Emma was around and would shake her head as if she was dealing with an unreasonable child. Emma tried to ignore it. She had a restaurant to run and she couldn't waste energy worrying about Linda's sulking. But it was hard not to notice how Linda still had her little clique of rich friends who treated the place like their personal clubhouse. They arrived in groups, laughing loudly, expecting the best tables, and often demanding small menu changes that they assumed would be accommodated without question. And while Linda had agreed, at least on the surface, not to give out free meals anymore, Emma had a feeling that something was still off. Then came the night that confirmed her suspicions. It was a Friday evening, one of their busiest nights. The restaurant was packed and the staff was working at full speed to keep up with orders. Emma was moving between the kitchen and the dining area, checking in with servers, making sure everything was running smoothly. That's when she noticed a table of 6 women in expensive dresses, sipping wine and chatting loudly. And at the head of the table, of course, was Linda. Emma immediately felt uneasy. This wasn't the first time she had seen this group, and she knew from experience that they were not easy customers. They always acted as if they were doing the restaurant a favor just by being there, and Emma had never once seen them reach for a check. She walked past the table casually, just close enough to hear Linda talking. "Oh, don't worry about it," Linda was saying to one of the women, who had just commented on how much she had enjoyed her meal. "It's taken care of." Emma stopped in her tracks. She turned on her heel and walked directly to the bar, where Jake was helping out since they were short-staffed that night. "She's doing it again," Emma said in a low voice. Jake glanced up from the cocktail he was mixing. "What?" "Your mother. She just told them their meal is taken care of." Jake sighed, clearly exhausted by the ongoing drama. "Are you sure she meant—" "Yes, I'm sure," Emma crossed her arms. "I don't know how she's doing it, but she's still giving them free meals." Jake put down the cocktail shaker and wiped his hands on a bar towel. "Okay, let me handle it." Emma watched as he walked over to Linda's table. She couldn't hear what he was saying, but she saw Linda's expression shift from pleasant to irritated in a matter of seconds. She waved a hand dismissively, but Jake didn't back down. After a few moments, she rolled her eyes, reached into her designer handbag, and pulled out a credit card, handing it to the server with exaggerated reluctance. When Jake returned, he looked both satisfied and tired. "She paid," he said. Emma raised an eyebrow. "Did she?" Jake hesitated. "Well, technically one of her friends did." Emma exhaled slowly. "So she wasn't planning to pay until you called her out?" Jake didn't answer, which told her everything she needed to know. That night, after they had closed up and sent the staff home, Emma sat down at the computer and pulled up the restaurant's financial records. She had been so busy running the day-to-day operations that she hadn't taken a deep dive into the numbers in a while. Now, as she went through the transaction history, she felt a slow burn of anger rising in her chest. Linda had been more careful since their argument, but she hadn't stopped. Instead of directly comping meals, she had been marking them under VIP guest discounts, which Emma usually reserved for very special circumstances. Longtime customers, special occasions, or the rare times when they needed to smooth over a mistake. But Linda had been using it as a loophole, applying it exclusively to her own friends. Some of the VIP tables had received up to 70% off their meals, and the loss was adding up fast. Emma rubbed her temples. This wasn't just a minor issue. If this continued, it would genuinely hurt their bottom line. The next day, she pulled Jake aside before the lunch rush. "I went through the records," she said. "Your mom's been using the VIP discount to give her friends nearly free meals." Jake's face darkened. "Damn it." "I'm changing the system," Emma said firmly. "From now on, only you and I will have the authority to approve discounts. The staff won't be able to apply them without our code." Jake nodded. "That's fair." That evening, when Linda arrived, Emma was ready. She didn't wait for another incident. She went straight to her mother-in-law before she could even take a seat. "Linda, we need to talk." Linda turned, her expression a mix of boredom and annoyance. "Oh, Emma, not this again." Emma kept her voice calm but firm. "You're not allowed to give out discounts anymore. The system has been changed. Only Jake and I can approve them now." Linda raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "I saw the records," Emma continued. "You've been applying VIP discounts to your friends, and it has to stop. This is a business, not a social club." Linda scoffed. "Oh, for God's sake, Emma, you're acting like I'm stealing from you." "You are," Emma said bluntly. Linda gasped, placing a hand on her chest, as if she had been personally attacked. "How dare you?" Emma refused to back down. "This isn't up for debate. No more discounts, no more free meals. If your friends want to eat here, they pay like everyone else." Linda stared at her for a long moment, then laughed, an incredulous, almost mocking sound. "You really think you can run this place without me?" Emma felt a cold anger settle in her stomach. "I know I can." Linda shook her head. "Sweetheart, do you know how much business I bring in? Do you really think half of the people who come here would bother if it weren't for me?" Emma met her gaze without flinching. "Then let's find out." For the first time, Linda looked genuinely unsure. "I'm done arguing about this," Emma continued. "The rules are in place. You don't have to like them, but you do have to follow them." Linda's lips pressed into a thin line. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," Emma said. "But at least it'll be my mistake to make." Linda didn't respond. Instead, she turned on her heel and walked out of the restaurant without another word. Emma exhaled and turned to find Jake standing nearby, having witnessed the whole exchange. "She's not going to take that well," he said. Emma nodded. "I know." Jake hesitated. "Are we ready for whatever comes next?" Emma squared her shoulders. "We'll find out." Emma knew that confronting Linda wouldn't be the end of the problem. It was more like the beginning of a new battle, one where Linda, instead of outright ignoring the rules, would find ways to test them, push their limits, and make Emma's life as difficult as possible. At first, things seemed to quiet down. Linda stopped coming in every night, which was a small relief. She still showed up occasionally, but her attitude was noticeably colder. She barely acknowledged Emma, and instead of her usual overbearing presence, she now acted as if she were an ordinary customer. That alone would have been fine, except that Linda had a way of making sure everyone knew she was displeased. She would sigh dramatically when the hostess sat her at a table she didn't like, tapping her nails impatiently on the surface as if she were enduring some great inconvenience. She would scrutinize the menu like she had never seen it before, then make passive-aggressive comments about how the old way was better. If a dish took longer than expected, she would call the server over and ask loudly, "Are we running a professional kitchen or not?" It wasn't just the staff who noticed. Customers picked up on it too. A few regulars even asked Emma if everything was okay between her and her mother-in-law. "Oh, fine," Emma would say with a forced smile. "Just the usual family dynamics." But inside, she was seething. Then came the night Emma realized Linda still hadn't given up control. It was a particularly hectic evening, with a full house and a wait list forming at the front. Emma was moving between tables, checking on guests, when she noticed something odd. One of the tables, a prime spot near the window, was sitting empty. A hostess was leading a young couple toward it when suddenly, Linda appeared out of nowhere. "Oh, I'm sorry," Linda said, stepping between the hostess and the couple. "This table is actually reserved." The hostess hesitated, looking confused. It wasn't marked as reserved in the system. Linda smiled, the kind of smile that wasn't really a smile at all. "That's because I just arranged it myself." Emma, who had been watching from a few feet away, felt her stomach drop. She strode over before things could escalate. "What's going on?" she asked, keeping her voice calm. The hostess looked relieved to see her. "Miss, Sterling just told me this table was reserved, but I don't see anything in the system." Emma turned to Linda. "Who is this table reserved for?" Linda gave her a look that was half amusement, half challenge. "Some friends of mine are stopping by." Emma's patience was wearing dangerously thin. "Linda, you don't handle reservations. If a table is open, it goes to the next party on the wait list." Linda shrugged. "Oh, come on, Emma. It's just one table. I'm sure you can find another spot for them." Emma turned to the couple, who were now standing awkwardly, clearly unsure whether they should stay or leave. "Give me one moment," she said to them, before lowering her voice and turning back to Linda. "This is not how things work. If your friends want a table, they can put their names on the wait list like everyone else." Linda's eyes narrowed. "You're seriously going to humiliate me like this?" Emma clenched her jaw. "I'm asking you to respect how we run things." Linda let out a dramatic sigh. "Fine, but don't expect me to keep bringing people here if this is how you treat guests." Emma turned back to the hostess. "Seat them." The hostess nodded and led the couple to the table. Linda, meanwhile, stalked off to the bar, ordering a drink with the air of a woman who had been deeply wronged. That night, Emma checked the reservation logs just to be sure. As expected, there had been no special requests, no calls, no notes about any of Linda's friends coming in. She had simply decided to claim the table, expecting that no one would question her. Emma knew then that just changing the rules wasn't enough. Linda wasn't going to stop unless she was forced to. The next morning, Emma sat down with Jake before they opened for lunch. "We need to do more than just tell her no," she said. "She's still acting like this place belongs to her." Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know. I saw what happened last night." Emma leaned forward. "I'm changing the system again. From now on, only you and I have access to reservations, discounts, and VIP status. No exceptions. The staff is already confused because she keeps undermining them." Jake nodded slowly. "That makes sense. And I'm telling them directly, if Linda tries to pull something, they come to me immediately." Jake hesitated, then asked the question Emma had been dreading. "And what if she doesn't—" "Stop!" Emma took a deep breath. "Then she's not welcome here anymore." Jake was silent for a long time. Emma could tell he was struggling. This was his mother, after all. But finally, he nodded. "If it comes to that," he said, "I'll back you up." Emma exhaled in relief. "Thank you." That evening, Emma gathered the staff for a quick meeting before service began. "I need everyone to be on the same page," she said. "From now on, Linda doesn't have the authority to change tables, offer discounts, or make special arrangements. If she tries, you come to me or Jake. No exceptions." The staff nodded, looking relieved. They had been walking on eggshells around Linda for weeks, and now they finally had a clear directive. As expected, it didn't take long for Linda to test the new rules. That same night, she arrived with two of her friends and, without even glancing at the hostess, walked straight toward a reserved table. The server assigned to that section immediately looked to Emma, who stepped in before Linda could get comfortable. "This table is reserved," Emma said. Linda didn't even blink. "Yes, for us." Emma folded her arms. "No, it's not." Linda let out a small, exasperated laugh. "Oh, Emma, don't be ridiculous. Do you really want to make a scene in front of all these people?" Emma met her gaze without flinching. "If I have to." Linda stared at her as if waiting for Emma to back down, but she didn't. After a long, tense moment, Linda exhaled sharply and turned to her friends. "Well, ladies, it looks like we're not welcome here anymore." Emma didn't say anything as they walked out. She just watched them go, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and triumph. When she turned back, Jake was standing near the bar watching the whole thing. "You okay?" he asked. Emma nodded. "Yeah, I think we just set a new rule." Jake smiled slightly. "And what's that?" Emma exhaled. "Linda doesn't run this place anymore." Linda didn't return to the restaurant the next night, or the night after that. In fact, for the first time in months, Emma went an entire week without seeing her mother-in-law's disapproving glances, dramatic sighs, or smug entitlement. At first, she felt a sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. The staff seemed more at ease, the customers weren't subjected to Linda's passive-aggressive remarks, and most importantly, Emma finally felt like she was running her restaurant, not babysitting an overbearing family member. But something still nagged at her. Linda had never been the type to back down quietly. The fact that she hadn't returned, hadn't even called, didn't feel like a victory. It felt like the calm before a storm. And then the storm hit. It started with small things. A few regulars, people who had once been some of their most loyal customers, suddenly stopped coming. At first, Emma chalked it up to coincidence. People had lives, after all. But then, she overheard a conversation between two women at the bar. "It's such a shame," one of them said, swirling the wine in her glass. "I used to love this place, but I heard the new management is completely unprofessional." Her friend nodded. "I know. I heard they don't even care about their loyal customers anymore. Someone told me they humiliated a woman just for trying to help bring in business." Emma felt her stomach drop. She had no doubt who had been spreading these rumors. The real confirmation came when one of the servers, Alex, approached her hesitantly at the end of the night. "Hey, Emma," he said, "I think you should see this." He handed her his phone, open to a local community Facebook group. There, in plain sight, was a long, dramatic post written by none other than Linda Sterling. "It breaks my heart to see a once thriving restaurant lose its way. I remember when this place was about community, about friendship. I dedicated my time, my effort, and my connections to building it up. But now I'm not even welcome. Imagine being pushed out of a place you helped create, all because the new management has no respect for the people who made it successful. I'm not saying you shouldn't eat there, of course, but just know, the warmth, the generosity, the class, it's gone. And I, for one, won't support a place that doesn't value its own." The post had hundreds of reactions and comments. Many of them were supportive, filled with crying emojis and messages like, "I can't believe this happened to you, Linda. You deserved better." Others were from people asking for more details, clearly intrigued by the drama. Emma's hands tightened around the phone. She forced herself to take a deep breath. "She's trying to ruin us," she said quietly. Alex looked uncomfortable. "Yeah, and some of her friends have been saying things to customers, too. Like, right before they leave, they'll lean in and say, 'Such a shame this place isn't what it used to be, huh?' Stuff like that." Emma thanked Alex and handed him back his phone. When she turned, she saw Jake standing a few feet away, his face unreadable. "She's really doing this," he said. Emma exhaled. "Yeah, she is." That night after they closed, Emma and Jake sat in their small office at the back of the restaurant. The reality of what was happening weighed heavily between them. "She's not just trying to hurt the business," Emma said. "She's trying to make me look like the villain." Jake rubbed his temples. "I don't even know what to say to her anymore." "You don't have to say anything," Emma replied. "She's made her choice. Now we make ours." Jake hesitated. "So what do we do? Do we respond?" Emma thought about it. Her first instinct was to go online and defend herself, to tell everyone exactly what had happened. But that's what Linda wanted, a public fight, something dramatic that would keep the gossip going. "No," she said finally. "We don't play her game. We let the restaurant speak for itself." Jake nodded slowly. "So We double down. We focus on the food, the service, the experience. Exactly. And that's what they did. The next few weeks were difficult. Some customers left because of the rumors, but others stayed. More importantly, new ones came in, people who had never been part of Linda's social circle, who weren't interested in the drama. Emma worked harder than ever, making sure every dish was perfect, every customer felt valued. Slowly but surely, things turned around. It helped that some of Linda's friends, particularly the ones who did pay for their meals, weren't as loyal to her as she had assumed. A few of them still came in, and when they did, they saw that nothing had really changed. The food was still incredible, the atmosphere was still warm. The only difference was that Linda wasn't there, acting like she owned the place. And then, one day, Emma got an unexpected call from a local food blogger. "I've been hearing some interesting things," the woman said. "Some people say the restaurant is going downhill. Others say it's better than ever. I'd love to come in and see for myself." Emma smiled. "We'd love to have you." The review was glowing. The blogger wrote about how the food was better than ever, how the staff seemed happy and motivated, how the atmosphere was a perfect blend of warmth and professionalism. She even addressed the rumors, saying, "Whatever drama happened behind the scenes, it's clear that the restaurant is in good hands now." The post went viral. And just like that, the tide turned. A month later, Linda walked into the restaurant. Emma wasn't surprised. She had been expecting this moment. Linda had lost the battle, and now she wanted to see what was left. She approached the hostess stand, but this time she didn't walk in like she owned the place. She hesitated, glancing around like a stranger in a place she no longer recognized. Emma walked up to her, crossing her arms. "Linda?" Linda turned, her expression unreadable. "Emma." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Linda sighed. "I saw the review." Emma nodded. "I'm sure you did." Linda pursed her lips. "Seems like you're doing just fine without me." Emma held her gaze. "Yes, we are." Linda exhaled sharply. "Well, I suppose I should congratulate you." Emma didn't smile. "That depends. Is it a real congratulations, or just another backhanded comment?" Linda tilted her head slightly as if considering her answer. Finally, she gave a small, reluctant nod. "It's real." Emma nodded back. "Then thank you." Linda looked around one last time, then turned toward the door. She hesitated before walking out, as if waiting for Emma to offer something. A truce, an invitation back into the fold. Emma didn't. She simply watched as Linda walked away, knowing that, for the first time, she had truly won.